Welcome into a Tuesday, February 24th edition of Daily Faceoff Live. We are streaming live on the DFO YouTube. And as always, looking for your inbox questions, or if you have a question for our friend Jeff Marek, he's swinging by in about 15 minutes time for our big segment today. Trade deadline talk. I mean, I think we're kind of done with Olympic talk, but whatever you want, throw it in the YouTube chat and we can pass it along to Jeff. Tyler Yaremchuk, Carter Hutton with you. Huts, how you doing?
Doing well, buddy. I think I'm past the Milan games hangover. I'm ready to move on to the NHL season. We unpacked it. I'm okay. Let's move on. Let's have some fun. We got a big second half coming. I'm looking forward to it.
It is like pretty crazy. Again, I was on with Colby and Johnny this morning, and we were talking about maybe players who are coming back from the winter games, maybe struggling to get right back into the swing of things and get to that emotional level. As fans, how's it going to feel after being so emotionally stressed out for all of those Olympic games to go back to regular season hockey? But I think what's unique here, Huts, is that for a lot of teams, the Oilers, obviously the team I cover the closest, 24 games left in the regular season. This is the part of the year when the playoff intensity starts to leak into regular season hockey a little bit. This isn't dipping your toe into a November game. Playoffs are on the line every night in the NHL right now.
I know, and there's some schedules that are 3 and 4 right away. So it's not like, and for a lot of these teams, those 3 games or 4 games coming out of this break are make or break if you're going to make the playoffs, if you're going to have a push. So there's really no time to kind of get up to speed at this point. For a majority of these teams, it's go time immediately. And that's dealing with some of your stars that have been playing, and whether they won or lost or everything in between, they didn't have that break. So getting them up to speed is going to be huge. And I think this is a very fragile time for a lot of teams in the NHL.
Let's kick things off by taking a look at some guys who are getting ready to play NHL hockey on the heels of the winter games. Matt Larkin, our editor at Daily Faceoff, had a great piece on some players whose stock either went up or down out in Milan. And you can see here a handful of players with red arrows next to their name, like an Elias Pettersson, a handful of players with green arrows next to their names. Huts, I'll give you first word. Who do you want to start with on this list?
I think for me, it's Jordan Binnington, right? After just a lackluster season and so many question marks coming into this, he was good when he needed to be. And again, that is what you need in the NHL, in the playoffs. So for teams that are on the bubble, I think of the way the Tristan Jarry situation has gone at Edmonton. And then I think about Montreal, how they haven't really got a lot of goaltending this year that's been consistent. So teams that would kick the tires on maybe Jordan, because if I'm Doug Armstrong, I'm looking at my team and where we're at. We're clearly not making the playoffs. Maybe it's time to sell off a few pieces, and maybe Binnington is attached because his stock isn't going to be any higher than it is right now.
You brought up the idea of maybe a trade for Jordan Binnington. And listen, he's a guy who was linked to Edmonton earlier in the season. Edmonton's made their move. They got Jarry. They got Ingram. That's not happening. You said another team, though, and I want to bring them up on the air, Huts. The Montreal Canadiens as a potential fit for Jordan Binnington. He is a big game netminder. There is reason to believe that the Blues would be open to trading him as they begin some amount of a sell-off. If you were the Habs and you did some sort of a Montembeault and a draft pick, is it a first, is it a second? I don't know. For Jordan Binnington, I think that's a match made in heaven. You would have him playing with Jakub Dobeš. Binnington's got one more year on his deal after this one. So you get him for this playoff run for one more. Maybe next year he's splitting with Jacob Fowler. And then when Binnington's contract's up, you're probably ready to give the net to Fowler anyways at that point. I think that Binnington-Montreal idea is a fantastic one.
Yeah, it would be awesome too. And again, I think the fact of the matter is it'd be a good situation for Fowler and for Dobeš to be around, right? Just the way that he prepares and the way that he deals with it. Where you look at Sam Montembeault, a guy that's maybe struggled a little bit more between the years and managing the moment of being at the Bell Center and being on a contending team now and a team that's trying to push forward. But for Jordan Binnington, just having that around your younger players is another asset to have too. If you're able to make it work and you're not married to the deal, right? It isn't a long-term contract. And then when that year is up, then he goes and he signs wherever he needs to go. Obviously, he's going to have a pay cut coming, granted, unless he just goes on a run here and does amazing. But I do like the fit. And I think, again, it would be like one of those situations where we talk about this a lot. The fact of the matter is, when you go and get that trade, what does that do to your locker room, right? It gives you a little bit of sense of belief. And that's only if they're wiping their hands of Sam Montembeault. That would be the only way that I think this happens. And they truly believe that Jacob Fowler is the next king of the crease in Montreal.
Yeah, and again, Montembeault, Binnington, the salaries aren't even. It's $6 million, $3 million, but Montreal can make the money work by moving out some other guys too. There's been a lot of talk about Patrick Laine. A couple of other names just from a trade perspective that I'm intrigued by. I think Vancouver's going to have a hell of a time trading Elias Pettersson. He was not good in the Four Nations. You can see Larkin gave him the down arrow. I'm intrigued in a guy like Mika Zibanejad, though. He's been having a great season with the New York Rangers. There were, a lot of talks going back to last year that they wanted to trade him. He didn't want to waive. I think about him scoring that big goal for Team Sweden. I think about how heartbroken he looked on the bench when they lost in overtime to the U.S. in the quarterfinals. And that maybe has me wondering, a guy like Zibanejad, who lifestyle-wise clearly loves being in New York. He has the trade protection. It's his right to stay there if he wants to. But does the bug of playing in big emotional hockey games, did that bite Mika a little bit? Is he all of a sudden maybe sitting there going, you know what? It would be fun to go to a contender and play in more big games over the next few years and play with other great players. Like, I wonder about Zibanejad maybe being more open to waiving now that he's gotten that little taste.
Yeah, it might be too, especially a guy that's been there for a long, long time and seeing that the future is like part of a rebuild, right? His number at 8.5 would be the tricky one, right? With 4 years left. But that being said, there's still a lot of value if you could slot him in the right position. And imagine the depth that would bring to a team that already usually has a first line center or someone that can be dominant. Playing him a bit down in his lineup where he's a little bit more protected, he might be a huge upgrade to what you have and making it work. And the other thing is, the slotting of where he goes, he might just get a better matchup and he might be able to produce more. He might be able to do a lot more with that confidence of growing from being at the Olympics and everything he's done there. So that's a definitely one to keep an eye on just because of the state of where the New York Rangers are at. And again, it could be one where you just take pennies on the dollar because at this point, trying to get something for him if he doesn't want to be there.
And he controls his own fate. I know SK in the chat says Mika is on record that he does not want to leave New York. And I'm saying I understand that. I just wonder if maybe there's not a little part of him that's got an itch now to play in some big games, to want to play in more playoff hockey games and try to win a Stanley Cup, because he's not going to get a chance to do that over the next few years in New York. We'll maybe have this conversation with Jeff as well. We'll get his take on who maybe rose their stock in the Olympics and how it could relate to some trade talk as well. But let's talk about the playoff race. Huts, again, every team in the NHL is under the 30-game remaining mark this year, and that means the playoff picture and every 2 points you do or don't get is going to have a massive impact on things. The Columbus Blue Jackets were the hottest team in the NHL going into the Olympic break. They'd won 7 in a row. They're 9-1-0. I'm going to give you some takes here, Huts, and you're going to rate them 1 through 10. 1 is you disagree, 10 is you love it, and you think I'm bang on. The Blue Jackets, 65 points, 4 points back of the Boston Bruins. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 6 points back of the Boston Bruins, don't have a game in hand. I'm going to say the Columbus Blue Jackets have a better shot at making the playoffs than the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rate it 1 through 10.
Oh, geez. I'm going to go 4. I don't know if I totally believe this Columbus Blue Jacket team is going to hang on and do this, what they need to. What I do think is going to be important for the Toronto Maple Leafs that gives me a little bit more is their goaltending. I think just Joseph Woll is ready to be the guy and carry the load. I am very concerned with Toronto's back end, though. I just think they're older and slower and where they're at. And after what went down with OEL at the Olympics and everything, I'm just concerned. But I still think Toronto has a little bit more of that star power to try to push them over the top, in my opinion, Ty.
And hey, they had won 3 in a row themselves going into that Olympic break, which again makes these next kind of 4 games leading into the deadline really important for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you're siding with the Leafs. I'm going to take Columbus. Let's go out west and do a very similar question here. Give me a rating 1 through 10. The Nashville Predators have a better shot at making the playoffs than the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken sitting in the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division. If the Seattle Kraken have no more haters, then I am dead. I am on record as being someone who does not believe in this group. The Predators right now, 4 points back of the 2nd wild card spot in the Western Conference. So again, they'd have some ground to make up, but I'm saying it. The Preds have a better shot down the stretch at making the playoffs than the Kraken. What do you say, Huts?
Oh, I'm with you there. I'm going to give that a 7.5. Can you do half points? Because I think it's somewhere in between. I just think Saros can parlay this into something special here. He played very, very well. When you get back there, and I think the psyche of a goalie at times, it can be a bit overwhelming when you go into these tournaments, but then to have success and do so well against the best teams, the best players, I think that can roll over into his season. And the break for some of their veterans, right? You look at Stamkos, you look at O'Reilly, like a little extra time off. Yossi played very well over there. So I think that will be important. And for me, Seattle, the biggest elephant in the room is the fact that they just don't get a lot of points, right? Like Jordan Eberle's leading their team with 38 points. Matty Beniers has 37. Like we're talking about teams that have 80, 90 guys with like way more points than them. And then my concern with Seattle is as it tightens up here, because this is going to be playoff hockey right out of the chute. where are they going to generate their offense from? And they already have to play such perfect hockey to win. That'd be my concern about the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, again, that is a really, really fair one. I'm just looking at strength of schedule here. The Seattle Kraken, they are in the top third of the NHL in terms of their remaining strength of schedule. They get to play the Canucks a couple more times, 2 against the Blues. They get the Flames still. So there are some winnable games on tap for them versus Nashville, who, Nashville's right around the same, actually. So strength of schedule isn't a really, really big difference between the two clubs. But yeah, I'm going to take the Nashville Predators. And again, that Western Conference playoff picture, it is mushy right now. We're going to keep the conversation going and talk about, let's do NHL awards here. Bet365. Shout out to Bet365, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Some odds have really moved as a result of the Olympics. And listen, I know that what happened in Milan it doesn't have a direct impact per se on awards races in the NHL, but a lot of these things are narrative driven. You know, how the public, how the masses feel about a guy can affect how the voting goes at times. So let's start with the Norris, where Zach Werenski has seen a huge jump, Huts. He has gone from, it was Cale Makar at minus 250 at points in January. It's now a pick'em between the two of them. So over under 50% chance that Cale Makar still wins the Norris this year. Or are you siding with Werenski?
Oh, I'm going to go over. I still like Cale Makar. Just the fact that Colorado is a much better hockey team. And I think that down the stretch, they're going to still be able to create and get points and continue going. And this is with one of the worst power plays, if not the worst, if I'm not correct, in the NHL. So I think that power play gets going, and Cale Makar is a big reason for that. And just like I talked about with Saros being able to parlay he played well, right? And I think McKinnon and Makar are going to have something to prove coming back from that Olympic loss, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, you look at that Avs power play, 15.1%, 32nd in the NHL. The other award that saw a big move over the course of the Winter Games was John Cooper shooting up in the Jack Adams race. Huts, I'll give you the same question here as Cooper moves to plus 140. Again, he is the favorite in this one. And it's interesting that, again, he's been widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best coach in the NHL for a number of years now. But he doesn't have the Jack Adams to go with it. This feels like one of those years where maybe it's like a course correction. The award seems to have always gone to not who's necessarily the best coach, but the coach of a team who does something that's unexpected, a team that blows away their preseason expectations. Like with the traditional thinking of the award, I think it should be Dan Muse's to lose, or even Patrick Waugh would have a pretty good case with what he's done on Long Island. But over under 50% chance that this is finally the year for John Cooper to win a Jack Adams.
I think over 50. I think this is his year, especially for everything that he's done in hockey with the Tampa Bay Lightning, their run of cups and being a powerhouse, and he's never won it, right? So I think this year it sets up well for him. But I'm with you. There's so many great storylines this year. You could talk about numerous coaches of where they're at. And the good thing with this, other like the gold medal game, they actually wait till the season is over to vote, not at the end of the first period for the MVP of the game. So this will be nice to see the season through and see who wins it. But I think it's John Cooper's time, because the rest for Kucherov, the rest for Vasilevsky, where they're at, I look for them to add a trade deadline too. So this should be a big push this year for the Tampa Bay Lightning, with the Florida being passengers.
Lindy Ruff is second in the Jack Adams odds, actually, at plus 175. Dan Muse at 14-1. There's something there, man. Dan Muse has that Penguins team playing some really good hockey. Obviously, we talked about them yesterday with Josh Getzoff in our big segment. But yeah, Coop, the favorite, at plus 140. Let's keep the sort of post-Olympic conversation going here, because again, right now, still with no games, puck doesn't drop on the NHL schedule until tomorrow night. We're in this weird sort of transition phase. We're also just 10 days away from the trade deadline, and that's a good spot to go with our friend Jeff Marek. His hit is brought to you by Tim Hortons. If you feel something exciting in the air, it's because roll-up season is officially back at Tim's. You can still play on the cup while supplies last, but don't forget to also play on the Tim's app and give yourself more chances to win just by doing what you're already doing, and that's drinking Tim Hortons. Roll-up season is only around until March 22nd, so do not wait until it's over to realize you forgot to play. For more information, check out timhortons.ca/rollup. Roll up to win only at Tim's. Jeff Marek, Monday to Friday with the sheet right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. Can I throw another name out at you for players that improve their stock during? There's a couple I want to throw in. This one may be, considering I believe there was interest from the Edmonton Oilers in previous seasons on this player. We'll get to him in a couple of seconds. I'll tell you what, man. Simon Nemec, his pairing with Martin Fehervary with Slovakia was outstanding. Like maybe one of the best pairs in the games. Like that's the guy the New Jersey Devils thought that they were getting when they drafted him second overall. And every game that he plays, and on the biggest stage against the biggest and best players in the world, I thought that Simon Nemec was outstanding. And how about Rasmus Ristolainen of the Philadelphia Flyers here, who had a really good tournament? And the last time I checked, Stan Bowman was in Milan as well, watching Ristolainen play. I don't know. I just thought those two specific. Like, listen, Jack Hughes did a wonderful job for himself as well, because a lot of questions going into the Olympics about what happened to Four Nations last year. Not suiting up for the Devils before the break, etc. But Nemec and Ristolainen for me would be the two that I would sort of lob out here to your viewers and listeners.
Well, I was going to say, Jeff, like there'd be a lot of GMs who saw, Tom Fitzgerald watching what Jack Hughes did, and other guys who were like, boy, can't wait to see what they're going to do for me down the stretch. There were probably a lot of GMs who were watching their guys play going, not the cash register signs necessarily, but like, I can't wait to sell high.
Hey, speaking of managers that were there, I was having a good time. Every time that there was a cutaway to the to Team Canada managers box, I swear, like through the entire tournament, and of course I say this tongue in cheek, Jim Nill was like a statue. He had the exact same pose. It's like he didn't move the entire tournament. Like if you told me that the Dallas Stars general manager was in that seat at that pose for the full 2 weeks at the Olympics, I would have said, yeah, because that's all we saw of Jim Nill. It was remarkable. It was the same pose, same chair, same everything, and Nill didn't budge every time the camera was on him. Anyway, one of those sort of goofy things that you watch when you have a 2-week tournament like the Olympics.
It's so funny because Doug Armstrong, when he's on the panel, he talked about we put the team together and then we just sit back and we don't get to play the game. The players play it. But I can't imagine the stress they're going through. And now the stress of getting back to the NHL season, the pressure that they're under now, you went from that break to now you have this small crunch time to the trade deadline to try to get stuff done. Who's the GM now that you think when you look at these teams in the dogfight, who's under the most pressure?
Maybe Kyle Dubas to some extent. I mean, when you talk about cutaways to the manager's box and seeing who's looking at their national team and then also their club team as well, I can only imagine what's going through Dubas's mind when he sees Sidney Crosby from Team Canada go down, and also Sidney Crosby from his Pittsburgh Penguins go down, and what that is going to mean for their playoff push and playoff chase, etc. But I think as far as managers under pressure, look, I just mentioned Jim Nill's name, and I'll throw the Dallas Stars in there. This is another go for it season for the Dallas Stars. And, every year they're pushing their chips in. Time is now, window is open, all of it. They've let go of picks. They've let go of prospects. They still have a couple of both hanging around that they can use. I really get the feeling that, well, first of all, nobody loves, having, 6 and 7 defensemen, 12 of them for the playoffs, quite like Jim Nill. So I would expect Jim Nill to go and try to find about a million depth defensemen as well. But also, if there's a GM that's out there that's poised to take a massive swing, it's probably the Dallas Stars and Jim Nill. And if I'm looking at the landscape here, I'm probably looking at the Calgary Flames for Nazem Kadri. But that's not exactly a story, considering the Dallas Stars have been interested in Calgary with Nazem Kadri for quite some time now. But it very much feels like Nill's poised to take another massive swing again this year. But I don't think that he wants someone whose contract is going to expire at the end of the season. No more of the Granlunds. Hit a home run with Mikko Rantanen and re-signed him. I think if anything, he's probably swinging for players with term, and that's Nazem Kadri going away.
And again, with the way the market's kind of shaping up, there's a lot more teams who are in the buyers or standing pat sort of category than there are teams who are in the sellers category. And I think what that could lead to is it's either going to be, it's not great considering we have a trade deadline show next Friday, but it's either going to be a boring deadline or we're going to get a couple of GMs who get really desperate and we see some jaw droppers.
Yeah. I think that managers want to get business done before the deadline, that they don't want the pressure of that deadline. They don't want the authority of the clock to sort of rule their roster construction, which is why I'm always curious about the weekend before a trade deadline as well, and even the day before the trade deadline. The trade deadline is always going to have, like, and last year we had like, well, two whoppers really, Brad Marchand and Mikko Rantanen, but that's been rare the last few seasons. Mainly trade deadline has turned into tweak deadline, and all the big moves are made before. But I still expect some whoppers here. I really do. I think St. Louis Blues are poised to trade some major pieces. And listen, I know we want to talk about the Florida Panthers here, so I might as well get to it. I really do wonder about what the Florida Panthers are going to do in a where we all know they've been riddled with injuries. Barkov being the big one, but we all know about Matthew Tkachuk at the beginning of the season and Seth Jones, and the goaltending hasn't exactly been great this year. Both Bobrovsky and Tarasov at the same time. So I would be curious to see what Bill Zito does here. If you read any military history books, they'll always tell you retreating can be an offensive posture too if you're still in the fight. And I don't think that anyone thinks that the Florida Panthers are not still in the fight. So I think that if they take a step back, it's not like we surrender, we're going to tear this thing down. I think a minor little retreat here by the Florida Panthers, and listen, Bill Zito's a wise general manager. I don't think that Bill Zito, is fooling himself about where this team is at and what it's going to take to get into a playoff spot. And I don't think that he's shy about saying, look, we're going to do a minor little retreat here. We're going to regroup, and we're going to come back at this thing healthy next season, and we may look at 3 Stanley Cups in 4 years as opposed to 3 in a row.
Yeah, I think it's more like just coming up for air almost, right? Like you've been in this compression of like so much hockey, right? You think the Oilers are going through it as well, right? Where now in the East, where it's at, I think you kind of get that, you have that leash to do it, right? You build on it. Now teams for me that don't have a leash are the Wings and the Sabres. It feels like more than ever, these teams have to make the playoffs, or there's going to be God knows what goes down in those markets. What do they do sitting here looking at the East, where it seems like there's a lot more parity compared to the West, where it looks like the Central and the Oilers and Vegas, there's a lot more powerhouses?
Well, with the Buffalo Sabres, I mean, it's fascinating right now because the conversation revolves around Alex Tuch. It's sort of keeping what you have. And, we've heard Tuch say, like, nothing right now with the contract. I'm just focused on this season, head down, game by game, insert cliche here. This thing goes on. And I had wondered whether the Buffalo Sabres would look at Alex Tuch and say, look, if we can't re-sign him, we can't let that asset, shake loose like Mitch Marner did from the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll need to do something about that. But the further and deeper the Buffalo Sabres get here, entrenched in a playoff position, I really wonder if the Buffalo Sabres just say, even if we can't sign him, we got to keep him because we have to get into the playoffs. And Terry Pegula, the owner of the Buffalo Sabres, is desperate to number 14 off the piece of paper that's staring in front of him right now. That they need to break that curse. I mean, since he bought the team, they haven't been in the postseason. I think he'd like to enjoy at least a couple of home dates here. As for the Detroit Red Wings, I know it's Steve Yzerman, and he's legend there, obviously, but I have a hard time believing that Chris Ilitch and the Ilitch family above him aren't placing the heat on. We don't even call the rink a new arena anymore. It's just a newish building that hasn't had any playoff dates. And we all know what happened last year between Dylan Larkin and Steve Yzerman, the chirping back and forth. Larkin saying you didn't give us any reinforcements, and Yzerman essentially saying, well, you didn't deserve any. The Detroit Red Wings this year deserve some reinforcements. So I think Dylan Larkin gets at least part of what he wants. Like, I don't think Steve Yzerman, goes crazy, even though he needs help both up front with the top 6 forwards and probably one more defenseman for the top 4. I can see Yzerman getting one. Probably not both. He's just not wired that way. He is still a very conservative and patient general manager, but it's no secret that Yzerman's been in the marketplace for both those two types of players. So I can see him being frisky come trade deadline time here too. And look, they were in the conversation, even though they didn't want to pay the price for Quinn Hughes, Rasmus Anderson, etc. So I think we know the direction Detroit is leaning on this one.
So how many teams do you think there are, and maybe if you have some examples too, like who truly don't know what they're going to do. Like, there's 4 or 5 games for most of these teams before the trade deadline. Like, does Washington know what they're going to do? Does Ottawa, Toronto,
so.
or are these teams who are like, you know what, if we go 5-0, maybe I'm going to change my mind?
I'll tell you what. Can I make a point about Ottawa here?
Mm-hmm.
I know that it hasn't been the best of all possible seasons for Linus Ullmark. We understand that, and everything that's happened to him off the ice, we're all sympathetic towards. But if they get anywhere passable goaltending, we're not even having any question mark conversations about the Ottawa Senators. Like, we're talking about the Ottawa Senators, like, who's going to win the Atlantic Division, either Tampa or Ottawa. So I think that, you're Steve Staios, you're saying, like, what more can we do here? I went out and got a Vezina Trophy goaltender. The roster is kind of set. Like, this roster is a winning roster. So, Ottawa is a fascinating team. I don't think we've given enough credit, because he's kind of been a pinata for the past few seasons. I think we've given enough credit to Don Sweeney and what he's done with the Boston Bruins. I know that, it hadn't gone swimmingly the last couple of seasons, and everyone wondering about, the future of Don with the Boston Bruins, and here they are again battling for a playoff spot. And when you talk about players that got a lift from the Olympics, how good's Charlie McAvoy feeling about himself? Like last time we saw him before the Olympics, like he's got the full bubble on, he's getting elbows in the head, and face is all swollen. Now he's coming back with a gold medal and feeling great about himself. I think Boston's interesting. I don't know that Boston is aggressive with anything right now, though. And the Ottawa Senators may be one of the most frustrating teams to manage, because so much good work has already been done. They just need a save more than anything else. You mentioned the Washington Capitals. I do wonder about Washington trying, and I've wondered about Jordan Kyrou fitting with the Washington Capitals here. Look, they were very much in the conversation last year for Nick Ehlers. It went right down to the wire between Washington and Carolina. Carolina offered the extra year, and they ended up getting the player. I don't think that means that Washington has stopped looking for someone to add a dimension of speed into the lineup. So I think that's probably a front burner issue here for Chris Patrick and the Washington Capitals. I do wonder about Los Angeles too. The loss of Kevin Fiala is massive, and I don't think that they want Andrei Kopitar to end his career in the regular season like Trevor Linden did. I think they want him to end his career in the playoffs, not the regular season, not game 82.
The most insane stat that I can find in the NHL is the Ottawa Senators being 9th most actual goals against, 2nd best expected goals against. Like, that is just, it's mind-blowing to think how much goaltending has let them down. Jeff, what's coming up today on the sheet?
It's the story. Okay, so Julia Tertiary is going to stop by and talk about the women's situation with the U.S. national team. So, of course, in the Jocks and Jills cast. And Jason Gregor is going to stop by. We're going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid and all things Edmonton, but also sort of, like, here's one of the things that I'm going to wonder about on the program today. And I really hope that it doesn't happen, although we can all see this coming a mile away. Given the acrimony now between the two countries, given the gold medal game, everything that happened afterwards, White House, social media, all of it. We'll see what happens at the State of the Union tonight. Are we heading into another era now of anthem booing?
No.
We're going to find out starting on Wednesday. It's going to be a
story,
story, guys.
All right.
It's going to be a
Jeff,
story,
appreciate
guys.
you popping on.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
That is a great point he made at the end there. I think we will probably get some anthem booing. Turn our attention to the YouTube chat. Carter Hutton, what is going on outside of one person making fun of my facial hair? What's this story about Jeff Skinner in a boat?
Oh, yeah, that's a funny one. Yeah, I don't even know how. I'm always engaging in the chat here. I love it. So when he had his big year in Buffalo, it was my first year, I think, and that was the year we had that hot run. He scored every which way. So I would always tell him, like, he was going to sign in Buffalo, and we joked around about it. We became good buddies. And I said, if you sign here, you got to buy me a boat. Like, that was an argument. He's like, yeah, you got to buy. And then he signed that massive contract. But you know what? The only thing is, he got his contract. I still don't have my boat. So if Jeff Skinner's viewing in, buddy, let's get Hutz's boat here. I got to go fishing.
Only 33 players in the history of the NHL, and this is just salary. It doesn't include endorsements, obviously, but only 33 players in the NHL have hit the $100 million mark in career earnings, and Jeff Skinner is one of them. He is 32nd all-time in earnings in the NHL. He is ahead of names like Patrice Bergeron, Jerome McGinley, Ryan Getzlaf, Claude Giroux. Like, it is crazy. Marian Hossa. Like, it is crazy to see how well he worked his career. He got $60 million from the Sabres, 31 from the Canes, and then 6 from Edmonton and 3 from the Sharks. Like, that's good money.
Yeah, like enough to buy your old buddy a boat. You know what I mean? We're not asking a lot. Not even a big one. Even just like a nice 14-footer with a 30. You know, I can just go for trolling up the river. Nothing crazy.
Let's get to our daily bets for Bet365. Download the app, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. I got Carter Hutton minus 10,000 to ever to not get his boat, I should say. I don't think it's happening, Huts. But there is one futures bet that I got my eye on that I find interesting, and that is the Utah Mammoth plus 350 to miss the playoffs this season, Huts. And this is not me being a Mammoth hater. I do think they are more likely than not going to be in the postseason this year, but this is all about the price tag of the bet for me. They're 4 points up on LA in the wild card race. LA has a game in hand. They're only 5 points up on the Predators. We talked about why, maybe a UC Saros-led run could push the Predators. Like, there's a few teams here. The Ducks are a point back of them with a game in hand too. There's a few teams here that could catch the Mammoth. Plus 350. I think they're a good bet to get in, but they're not that much of a lock in my eyes.
No, yeah, I don't know. I think this is a team that has to press too. Again, we talked about GMs and teams on the hot seat. It feels like, at this point, Bill Armstrong there is going to make some moves to try to push this team over. It's happy belated birthday, too, to Nick Schmaltz, who turned 30 yesterday. That's another one, too, right? The 30-year-old, the year he's had, like, what did they do with him? Like, the number he's going to demand, does he just become a high-priced rental that you're going to have to walk from because he's going to want so much money? So they have a lot going on. I think if they make the playoffs, it's going to be in the back of Vejmelka. Vejmelka's going to have to be their MVP. He has the most wins right now in the NHL. He never saw a single minute of play at the Olympics. So that's another interesting take. He's going to be fresh and ready to go as well.
Garbage time. Let's wrap it up here by taking a look at, the images that are coming out of these Team USA parties. They landed in Miami. They were quick to the nightclubs and strip clubs to celebrate their gold medal. Listen, if you win, you can flaunt it. You can go about it however you want. They're going to be going to the State of the Union tonight. There are some guys who might not be available for their NHL teams tomorrow as a result of this. What do you make of the big parties that the USA is throwing themselves here?
Rightfully so, right? You want it, you get to celebrate it. And again, I don't think, there's always the term in the NHL as a pro. It's if you go out partying, you got to get up in the morning and play guilty. I'm not sure anybody can play guilty after a party like this. They are blowing it up, and it's good for hockey. It's good for the game, I guess, in that sense. But that being said, I'm sure there's a lot of people, JT Miller haters, that aren't liking that photo you just showed of him being an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah. Craig Berube 31 minutes ago did say that Austin Matthews, even though he's going tonight, is expected to play on Wednesday against the Lightning. And that would really be the only gripe I'd have, is if I was a fan of a team like the Leafs or whoever it might be, who's pushing for a playoff spot where every game matters so much, and you potentially wouldn't have a guy like Matthews in the lineup. That would be the only reason I'd have a gripe with it. But like you said, if they're going to wake up on Wednesday and get to wherever they need to get to and play in their respective games, then I have no problem with however hard you want to party. Let's wrap up the show with a developing situation here, Carter Hutton. We might have a trade going down. Elliot Friedman reporting Brett Kulak is on his way to the Colorado Avalanche. So we wondered about Kyle Dubas and the Penguins maybe doing a little buying, a little selling. This appears to be going more towards the selling side of things. Brett Kulak, back-to-back Cup finals with the Edmonton Oilers, made a Cup final with the Montreal Canadiens. Plenty of playoff experience. He's a pending UFA. Sounds like the Avs want to get in on that.
Yeah, not surprising, too. A guy that has NHL experience, right, in the playoffs, going to Cup finals, being there, being very reliable for the Edmonton Oilers. So, and this was the name that was thrown around that might be a trade that gets moved off of, just like Stuart Skinner was brought up yesterday. So I think this is a good upgrade for the Colorado Avalanche, adding some depth, knowing what they're going to face come playoff time, right? The Colorado Avalanche know where they're at. I think there's going to be desperation in Colorado. So a good ad for Kulak and good for him back to the playoffs and back into a really good situation to excel in Colorado.
And again, I think Pittsburgh, that trade, again, you get Skinner, you get Kulak, you get a second-round pick, and you get out of the Jari money. We'll see what they now turn Kulak into. It has a chance to sort of multiply the assets and knock out Panda. Interesting that the Penguins are selling. I think what we're going to see here is the pending UFAs are out, and they're going to try to bring in some guys with terms, some guys who are on the younger side. Think of what they did with the Yegor Chinnikov deal. Like, they're keeping one eye on the future, but I think they're going to give Sidney Crosby and company some help because they're second in the Metro. Talked about it yesterday with Josh. This is not a team that's 4 points out and looking for some crazy run. Like, if they play 500 hockey, they should get into the playoffs. To me, this is not a sign that the Penguins are selling. It's just a sign that they're going to be active on both sides of the coin.
Well, especially when they can have someone that has value like that, where they bring something in and they can get him out. You know, last year playing in 22 games, he was averaging 23 minutes a night in the playoffs. Like, those are big minutes, and those are minutes that they can use to protect their stars, right? Because Colorado gets into a dogfight, whether it's Minnesota or Winnipeg, and you have games where maybe you get a lead or you're down and you can lay off your stars and use Kulak to kind of eat up minutes to protect Makar, protect Taves. I think this is a big upgrade. And for Pittsburgh, you got to kind of keep tweaking because you are in a unique situation where I think these next few weeks are really going to tell the future of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
What's the return? All of that, Jeff Marek will likely have that for you during the sheet, which is coming up in 24 minutes time. Tomorrow, Steve Peters back on the show. We still got Dave Pagnotta, our insider, later on in the week as well. So I do not think this will be the last trade we get in the next sort of 48 hours here as we work our way through the week. Tomorrow, games are back as well, and that'll certainly be a lot of fun. Big thank you to Jeff for popping on. Everybody in the YouTube, great stuff as always. If you're new to the show, leave us a like, hit the subscribe button because we are back here every single weekday at noon Eastern. Enjoy the last Tuesday without NHL hockey, the last work day without NHL hockey before the end of the regular season, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on the sheet with Jeff Marek, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.